Hi class, let's we start the chapter today, quadratic equations, okay? This is chapter number 4 as per the NCERT sequence. What we are going to do in this lecture, that I'm going to complete all the introduction part first, and then after that we will see some questions, okay? So the chapter is quadratic equations. First thing which we should know that what is a quadratic equation. Before coming to quadratic equations, it is my duty to inform what is an equation. Okay, so equation is basically a mathematical statement in which we are having some left hand side and right hand side. Also, equation must have some variables in it, right? So when we try to frame the definition of an equation is a mathematical statement with an equal to sign. Equal to sign means it must have some left hand side and some right hand side, right? So equation is a mathematical statement with an equal to sign and at least one variable in it. We are having so many equations, like in chapter number 3 we have studied about linear equations in two variables. Chapter was pair of linear equations in two variables. Okay, this equation is different from the linear equations. In linear equations we had the degree as 1. Okay, so here if the equation is having degree 2, that equation will be quadratic equation. Okay, so let me write the definition of quadratic equation. It says any equation which is in the form of ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0. This is the general form of quadratic equation. Any equation which is in the form of this, it will be called quadratic equation. In this equation, if it has to be quadratic or if it has to represent a quadratic equation, this a should not be equal to 0. What will happen if this a is 0? This will vanish this degree 2 term and then it will be converted into a linear equation. So while writing this as the standard form of quadratic equation, we must assume that this a should not be equal to 0. So any equation which is in the form of this, where a is not equal to 0, called a quadratic equation. Okay, so any equation in the form ax square plus bx plus c is a quadratic equation. In that situation, this a should not be equal to 0. Okay, this a is also called as the leading coefficient. Why? Because this a actually decides the degree of this equation. This a is related with the term which defines the degree of any equation. Okay, a is also called leading coefficient. As it helps in deciding the degree of the equation. Okay, this helps in deciding the degree of equation. Now in this situation, as the degree of the equation is 2. Degree of this equation is 2. How? To get the degree of any equation, we must find degree of each and every term. To get the degree of any equation, we must find degree of each and every term. If we have to find degree of this equation, then for this term degree is 2. Degree is basically the power which is being raised on the variable. So this term is having variable x and this x is having power 2. Therefore this first term is having degree 2. This second term, it is also having x. This x is having power 1. Therefore this term is having degree 1. Now for this constant term we don't have any x, so what we will do to find the degree? For any constant term we will just multiply it by x to the power 0, because any base to the power 0 is always 1. So this will give you degree of this term, which is the power raised on the variable term. Okay, so for any constant term degree is always 0. Now what we have learned, that in ax square plus bx plus c equal to 0, degree of this term is 2, degree of this term is 1, and degree of this term is 0. 2, 1 and 0, highest from them is 2. That will be the overall degree of this equation. Okay, so in case of a quadratic equation, degree is always 2. Now, as the degree of this equation is 2, therefore it is a quadratic equation. Okay, so this is the definition of quadratic equation. Now we have to understand about its roots and other things also, right? Okay, so the next thing is general form of any quadratic equation. General form of any quadratic equation. General form is also the standard form, general or standard form, right? So general form is ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0. When you write ax square plus bx plus c equal to 0, you should always write that leading coefficient should not be equal to 0. This is the general form or any quadratic equation. Means any quadratic equation will be in this form only. For an example, you may get question like this. Suppose I am giving a quadratic equation. It is 3x square plus 5x plus 7 is equal to 0. And somebody may say that you give the value of a, b and c. Okay. To calculate the value of a, b and c, you will just equate this with the standard form. Okay. So a is coefficient of x square, means the number which is multiplying x square. So here the coefficient of x square is 3, therefore a is equal to 3. B will be the coefficient of x, means the number which is multiplying b. So b will be 5 and c is the constant term which is 7. If this equation is like that, first you have to write this in this form. Okay. So this will be 3x square. Now we are having plus sign in between. So how we will do that? We can do this simplification to get the standard form. After that we can write the value of a, b and c. Okay. So this is the general form of any quadratic equation. Now let's talk about its roots or its solution. How we can find the solution? What do we mean by roots of any quadratic equation? So for that, next topic is roots of a quadratic equation. Roots of any quadratic equation. Now what is the meaning of this root? Root is basically the solution of that equation. Okay. Roots are basically solution of that equation. Now why I have written roots here? Why not the root? Because as we know, for any equation, number of roots or number of solutions are equal to the degree of that equation. Means if that equation is linear, degree is always 1. So in case of a linear equation, number of solution or number of roots will be 1. Similarly, if the equation is quadratic, means degree will be 2. For that equation, number of roots will be 2. Means there will be 2 solutions of that equation. So what is the meaning of root? Let's understand that first. Roots are basically the value or the values of variable. Roots can be more than 1, more than 2 or anything else, anything. So roots are the value or the values of variable which when substituted in the equation makes LHS is equal to RHS. Okay, so roots are the value of variables which makes left hand side and right hand side equal. In other words also we can say that roots are the values which when substituted in the equation makes left hand side equal to right hand side or satisfies the equation. Okay, in case of a quadratic equation, the degree is 2, therefore there will be two values at max. Maximum there will be two roots. In case of a quadratic equation, there will be two values at max of the variable which can satisfy the given equation. Okay, so in case of a quadratic equation, since the degree is 2, therefore at max two values of x can be there which satisfies the given equation. In case of a quadratic equation, we represent those roots by alpha and beta. Means alpha and beta are the roots of the given quadratic equation. For an example, let's suppose if the equation is ax square plus bx plus c equal to 0, this is a quadratic equation where the leading coefficient a is not equal to 0. If alpha and beta are the roots, if alpha and beta are the roots, then what will happen? If you put x equal to alpha, it will be a alpha square plus b alpha plus c. This is the value of this particular equation. Since alpha is the root, means it will satisfy the equation. Satisfy the equation means at alpha, this left hand side will be equal to right hand side. Right hand side they are having 0. Okay, means this alpha will satisfy the equation. So this ax square plus bx plus c, it will be equal to 0. Similarly, beta is also a root, so it will also satisfy the equation. Means if you put x is equal to beta here, you will get a 0 in the right hand side. So a beta square plus b beta plus c, this will be equal to 0. So this is the basic definition of roots. You can note it down, right? Then we are going to see how many methods are there in which we can find the roots of any given quadratic equation. Okay, so there are three methods in which we can find the roots of any quadratic equation. Now we are going to see those three methods. Okay, so let's see. Okay students, I hope you have copied this. If not, please note it down. Now we are going to see how many methods are there in which we can find these roots of any quadratic equation. Okay, but before that there is one more thing we need to discuss. It's the relationship between the roots and the coefficient of any given equation. Okay, so let's see that. Okay, so the topic is relationship between roots and coefficients. In this topic, we will see what is the relationship between roots. Roots means alpha and beta. Okay, so in this topic, we will see what is the relationship between roots, that is alpha and beta, and the coefficients that are a, b, and c. Okay, so let ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0. This is a quadratic equation in which alpha and beta are the roots. Okay, for this equation leading coefficient is not equal to 0. So for this quadratic equation alpha and beta are the roots. Now we have to see what is the relation between alpha, beta, a, b, c. Okay, so the first relation is sum of roots. Sum of roots means sum of these two numbers, that is alpha plus beta. Alpha plus beta will be equal to minus b upon a. This is very similar to polynomial. Okay, these relations and these topics is actually very similar to the polynomial formula. Second relation is product of roots. Product of roots means alpha into beta. This will be equal to c by a. We will visualize all these things, right? Then the third formula in which they will give you alpha and beta and they will ask to form quadratic equation. Okay, so if you know the roots and you have to form the equation, this will be equal to x square minus sum of roots multiplied by x plus product of roots is equal to 0. Now you may consider that this form, third formula, is very much similar to the polynomial formula. Let me show what is the difference between this and the formula which you have learned in the polynomial chapter. In the polynomial chapter, this quadratic equation will be written in this form: ax square plus bx plus c. There will not be any zero in the right hand side. This is the standard form of writing a quadratic polynomial. For this polynomial, alpha and beta serve the same purpose, but we will not call them as a root. We will call them zeros. Okay. So for polynomial we use the word zeros, and for equation we use the word roots or solutions. So in the quadratic polynomial, you have understood that sum of zeros, it's not sum of roots, it's sum of zeros. So sum of zeros will be minus b by a, product of zeros, it will be c by a, and the third formula in which you have to form the quadratic polynomial if you are given alpha and beta. So to form the quadratic polynomial, you will be using this formula, which is k times x square minus alpha plus beta into x plus alpha into beta. Now what is the difference between this and this? As this is polynomial, so it will be written in the form this. And this is the equation, therefore we have written a zero, a constant in the right hand side. Suppose this is your quadratic polynomial and you have to form a quadratic equation from that, then what we will do? We will just equate this with the constant number 0 in the right hand side. To get an equation from any polynomial, we just equate that polynomial with 0. This k is a constant number which is not equal to 0. K is definitely not equal to 0. So k is not equal to 0 means we can divide both sides of this equation, since this is an equation because we are having right side also. So we can divide this equation by this constant number because it is not equal to 0. If it is equal to 0, we cannot divide it by 0, right? Because 0 by 0 is not defined. So this will be x square minus alpha plus beta multiplied by x plus alpha into beta, and this will be equal to 0. This is what this format is. Okay. So there is very much similarity in between quadratic polynomial and in quadratic equations. So this is the relationship between roots and coefficients of any given quadratic equation. Now we'll see how we can find these numbers and how we can visualize these two relation and how we can form a quadratic equation if the roots are given with us. Okay, if the roots are with us. So in that, I'm going to take an example. I'm going to take an example in which I can visualize all these three formula. Okay. So let me take an example in which I am taking a quadratic equation. So the equation is, let's say it's x square minus 5x plus 6 is equal to 0. Since I have constructed this equation, so I know its roots. For this equation, alpha will be 2 and beta will be 3. These two are the roots of this equation. Okay, 2 and 3 will satisfy this equation. You can check that. So alpha and beta are with us. For this equation, leading coefficient, that is coefficient of x square, it is 1. Coefficient of x, which is b, it is equal to -5, and c is equal to 6. Now we are going to visualize this and this. Okay, so for the first part, let's visualize this relation. Alpha plus beta is equal to -b by a. Right. So left hand side of this relation of this equation or this formula is alpha plus beta. Let's put the value of alpha and beta here. We are having alpha 2 and beta 3. This will be 2 plus 3, which is equal to 5. Now right hand side of this is -b by 8, which is equal to minus, value of b is -5 and a is 1. So this will be 5. As you can see, left hand side and right hand side both are equal to 5, means we have verified this formula. It's correct. Okay. So alpha plus beta is equal to -b by a. It is verified. Right. So the second part is alpha into beta, c by a. For this, the left hand side is alpha multiplied by beta. We are having the value of alpha and beta. Let's just put the values. 2 multiplied by 3, it is 6. Okay. So alpha into beta is 6. Now right hand side which is c by a. Right hand side which is c by a. C of this equation is 6. A is 1. Left hand side, right hand side both are equal, means this is also correct formula. Alpha into beta is equal to c by a. This is also verified. Let's verify this part. Okay. Now we are having alpha and beta, and we assume that we don't know this equation. Okay. By using these two roots, can we find this equation? That is the question. Okay. So this formula will help us in finding the quadratic equation for which the roots are given. Right. So to get this equation, we are going to use alpha and beta in this particular formula. So this formula will give us alpha plus beta. So alpha plus beta is how much? 2 plus 3 is 5. X and alpha into beta. Alpha into beta is 3 into 2, which is 6. This must be equal to 0. Therefore, the equation must be x square minus 5x plus 6 is equal to 0. So I hope these three relations are clear to you. This is the relationship between roots and coefficients. Now you all have to copy this. Okay. Now we are going to see how many methods are there in which we can find alpha and beta. Okay. So this topic is method of finding the roots. How many methods are there in which we can find roots of any given quadratic equation? There are 3 methods. Method number 1 is factorization method. This is also called middle term splitting. Middle term splitting. This is the first method. Now method number 2, by completing the square method. And third method is by quadratic formula. Now this third method is actually invented by a great mathematician, Sridharacharya. He was from India. So it's a big honor to all of us that our scientist, our mathematician who invented this formula, which is using, which we are using. Okay, this quadratic formula is actually derived by using completing the square method. All right. So this method is invented by Indian mathematician Sridharacharya. So we can call this as Sridharacharya's rule, because this is invented by Indian mathematician Sridharacharya. Okay, so these three are the methods in which we can find the roots of any given quadratic equation. Now we are going to see these methods. Okay, so let's see the method by which we can find the roots of any given quadratic equation. There are three methods which we discussed. So out of them, first method is the factorization method. This is also known as middle term splitting method. Middle term splitting method, which in short is written as MTS. MTS means middle term splitting method. So in this method, what is the process? What is the process which we need to follow? What is the working rule? Let's take a quadratic equation. Let this be an equation in which the roots are alpha and beta. Leading coefficient is not equal to 0, which we need to consider always while writing any quadratic equation. Now it's a myth. It's a myth that every quadratic equation, if it is solved by, or if it has to be solved by factorization method, it is always necessary that we need to apply middle term splitting. It's not correct, right? Every quadratic equation is not necessarily factorized by middle term splitting. There are so many other approaches also, right? So let's see what are those approaches in which we can factorize quadratic equation without using middle term splitting. Okay. So first approach, if in any equation, any quadratic equation, if b and c both are equal to 0, then what we need to do? If b and c both are 0, that equation will be ax square equal to 0. In that situation, alpha and beta are the roots. You just have to write alpha and beta both equal to 0. Also, side by side, I am going to take the example for this particular situation. So for the first case, let's see if the equation is 3x square is equal to 0. In that situation, without seeing anything, you just write both values of x are 0, therefore alpha is also 0 and beta is also 0. Alpha and beta are the values of x which satisfies the given equation. They are called roots. This was the first case. Case number 2. Suppose if the constant term is 0, means in that equation there is no constant term. In that situation, what you will do? You will take x common. You will not apply middle term splitting, okay? You will just take x common. So this equation will be in the form ax square plus bx is equal to 0. If you take x common, it will be reduced in the form a. You have taken x common from that, so it will be ax plus b is equal to 0. Then you will equate these two factors with 0 to get alpha and beta. Let me take an example for this situation. Suppose you are given an equation like this: 5x square plus 10x is equal to 0. In this equation there is no constant term, so rule number 2 will be applicable, in which we don't have to apply middle term splitting. We just have to take x common. While taking x common, you also see whether some constants are also common or not. So here I am taking 5x common. This will be x plus 2 equal to 0. Now you have to equate these two with 0. So when you equate 5x with 0, you will get x equal to 0, which is your alpha. And when you equate this with 0, so x will be minus 2, that will give you your beta value. So alpha will be 0, beta will be minus 2, or alpha will be minus 2 and beta will be 0, right? Third case. See, A can't be 0. Second case was B and C is 0. Sorry, first case was B and C both are 0 simultaneously. Second case in which C is 0. Now we will see if B is 0, then what will happen? A and C are non-zero, B is 0, then what will happen? What we can do? In this situation, when B is 0, you will always see in the equation that the sign of A and C will be opposite to each other. Means A and C can't be both positive, they can't be both negative also. We'll see why I am saying this. First, let's we solve this situation in which I am considering that A and C both are having opposite sign. Right? So the equation will be ax square minus C, because B is 0. There will not be any x term. Okay? So in this situation, after this, you have to apply the identity m square minus n square, that is m minus n and m plus n, to factorize this equation, right? So for the third situation, suppose the given equation is like this: x square minus 4 is equal to 0. So you can see A is 1 and C is minus 4. A and C are having opposite sign. We need to apply this identity m square minus n square. You can write this 4 as 2 square, so it will be x minus 2 into x plus 2, which is equal to 0. Then you will equate these two factors with 0. You will get x is equal to 2 and x is equal to minus 2. These will be your alpha and beta. Now in this you have seen that this constant term is a perfect square number. I have taken that constant term as a perfect square number. Suppose this constant term is not a perfect square number, then what will happen? How we can make this in the form a square minus b square? Suppose the equation is x square minus 10 is equal to 0. Okay, here also I have taken a positive and c negative. This 10 is not a perfect square number, so it will not be possible to write this in the form of whole square, but it is possible to write it in the form of whole square. How we can do that? This x is simply x whole square. This 10, if I have to write this in the form of a whole square number, we can write it as root 10 and whole square to that, because root 10 whole square is 10 only. Now you can see this is m square minus n square form, so it will be factorized as m minus n and m plus n is equal to 0. This will be x is equal to root 10 and x is equal to minus of root 10. These two are your alpha and beta value. Okay. Now, why I have written that a and c both will be of opposite sign? What will happen if they both are positive or they both are negative? Then let's see that here. Suppose there is an equation which says x square plus 16 is equal to 0. There is no b in this, means there will not be any x term, but a and c both are positive. Then we need to see. So for this, I am not able to apply the identity a square minus b square or m square minus n square. I am not able to apply that identity, means I cannot factorize it with the identity m square minus n square is equal to m plus n into m minus n. Then what we will do? We will just transpose this 16 to the right hand side. If we do so, there will be a situation in which I am seeing that any number is there and whole square to that is a negative number. It's not possible actually. For any real number, square of that number is always positive. That is the definition of real number. Okay, that is the definition of real number. Real number are those numbers whose squares are positive. If any number is having its square negative, then that number is not a real number. So this type of question will not come in class 10 syllabus, because they are in class 11. We will learn a chapter complex number in class 11. In that we will deal with these situations also. But for class 10, these questions are not in your syllabus. Okay. Therefore, it is very compulsory that whenever there is b 0 or there is no x term in the equation, the sign of a and c will always be opposite to each other. Both can't be positive and both can't be negative also. Here you can see that a and c both are positive. What will happen if a and c both are negative? Means it will be like this. Situation will be same. Situation will be same. How? This minus x square will be 16 and therefore x square will be minus 16. The same situation is also here. Means whenever there is no x term in the quadratic equation, means there is no b, then sign of a and c must be opposite to each other. So these three are the cases in which we don't have to apply middle term splitting method. Now, when to apply middle term splitting method? There is fourth case also. Let me discuss that case here. Fourth case. This part is not relevant. There is fourth case also. So in the quadratic equation, a can't be 0 if b is also not equal to 0 and c is also not equal to 0. Then only apply middle term splitting. Okay. So this is the complete explanation of factorization method, which is also known as middle term splitting method, MTS. Let me recall this one more time because this is very important. This is the first method in which we can solve any given quadratic equation. Okay. So this is the given equation in which b and c both are 0. That is the first case. Whenever b and c both are 0, you just write alpha and beta both equal to 0. When c is 0, it means there is no constant term in that quadratic equation. Whenever there is no constant term, equation will be in this format: ax square plus bx equal to 0. In that situation, you will not be applying middle term splitting. What you will do? You will just take x term common. Okay. So this is the supporting example for this rule number 2. Right. Here I have taken 5x common. Then this is factorized. Now you can equate these two factors with 0 to get alpha and beta. Third case is also there when there is no b. No b means there is no x term. In that situation, you will first check whether a and c are having opposite sign or not. If a and c both are having opposite sign, means one is positive, other is negative. If this is happening, then only you will proceed with the question. Otherwise, you will say there is no real roots. And those situations are not in your class 10 syllabus. Right? So whenever a and c both are having opposite sign, you will apply this formula. Now there will be a question that the constant term is a perfect square or not. If it is a perfect square number, you can get the integer roots. And if it is not a perfect square number, you will get rational roots. Okay. So this is the situation, and last situation is the fourth one when a can't be 0, b and c are also not 0. Whenever in any quadratic equation a, b, c all are present, then only you will apply middle term splitting. Otherwise, there are so many shortcuts. Now, you need to copy all these things. Then we will see the next thing, which is how to apply middle term splitting correctly. And after that, we will see completing the square method, and then there will be quadratic formula. Right? So you can copy all these things. Okay, students, I hope you have copied this. Now we need to see how we can apply middle term splitting. Though I will not be explaining this method in detail because we will see a lot of questions in which we will apply this method actually. So right now, I am just going to explain briefly what is middle term splitting method. Okay. So, what is this middle term splitting method? Let's we have this quadratic equation in which the leading coefficient is not equal to 0. This method is very similar to regrouping method. Okay. What is regrouping? It's a method in which we can factorize any given expression. To apply regrouping method, number of terms should be even. Number of terms should be even means, suppose there are 4 terms. These are 4 terms, number of terms are even. From first 2 terms, if we can take something common, and from the last 2 terms, if we can take something common, then there is a possibility that we can factorize these 4 terms. That is actually the working rule of middle term splitting. Okay? So if this is the equation, this is the quadratic equation, there are 3 terms. Number of terms are odd, so we cannot apply that method, right? So in that situation, what we have to do, we will apply middle term splitting, right? So this will be middle term. Why it is middle term? Because I have reduced this equation in terms of degree, and degree should be reducing order. Degree should be in the reducing order. Means first term is having degree 2, second term is having degree 1, third term is having degree 0. So in order of degree, I have arranged these terms in reducing order, right? So this will become the middle term. Or if you want, I can take an example, a very simple example, because we will see so many questions. We will solve so many questions on this formula. So let me take a very simple example. X square 5x plus 6 equal to 0. We have to find roots of this equation by this method. So degree is 2, degree is 1, degree is 0 means it is already arranged in reducing order of degree. So this will become the middle term. I have to split this into 2 parts. So when I split this in 2 parts, first term will be like this, then there will be second term and third term. These 2 terms are actually written due to this term, because we have splitted this term into 2 parts, and then this is last term which is equal to 0. Then we will try regrouping and we will take common terms. Now, how to split this middle term? What is the process? What is the rule behind this? So first you will check what is the product. Product means A multiplied by C. And what is the sum? Sum is directly this B. Okay? So in this situation, let's check what is the product and what is the sum. So product will be 1 multiplied by 6, which is 6, and sum will be value of B directly, so it is minus 5. Now we have to think about 2 numbers which are having product plus 6 and sum minus 6. Since the product is positive, so both number must be positive or they must be negative, because then only the product will be positive. Okay? So both number must be positive or they must be negative. If one number is positive, other number is negative, or first number is negative, second number is positive, their product will be negative. Here also the product will be negative. But in this situation, if we take both number positive, then the product is positive, and if both number are negative, then also the product is positive. So now the product is positive means this situation will not be applicable here, because one number positive, one number negative will give us a negative product. Now either it will be this or this. Now this sum will decide whether this is possible or this is not, whether this is possible or this. Okay? So sum is negative. Think about it. If 2 numbers are positive, can we get a sum negative? No, we can't get negative sum. So only this situation is possible in which both numbers are negative, so that they are having product positive and they are having sum negative. Now we'll factorize this 6. Factors of 6 are 1, 2, 3 and 6. So 3 and 2 both will be negative, so number will be minus 2 and minus 3. When you multiply this, you will get plus 6. When you add them, you will get minus 5. So these 2 are the factors. These 2 are the middle term splitting factors, right? So we'll be writing this as x square minus 3x minus 2x plus 6 is equal to 0. Now what we have done, we have splitted this middle term into two parts. So from first two terms, if I take x common, it will be x into x minus 3. We have to write the sign of third term as it is. So third term is negative, let me write minus here. From this term and this term, 2 is common, so this will be x minus 3. So this will give me x minus 3 into x minus 2 is equal to 0. Values of x will be 3 and x will be 2. These are my alpha and beta values. So this was middle term splitting method. Okay. I am not taking so many questions here because we will take so many questions when we actually solve questions. In this, I have just explained middle term splitting method. Now we need to see method number 2, which is completing the square method, right? So you can copy this. Alright students, so let's see method number 2, which is completing the square method. So method number 2, completing the square method. In this method, we will try to find how we can get the roots alpha and beta for any given equation. So let me take an example. Let me take a question directly. So the question is x square minus 7x plus 12 is equal to 0. We have to find roots of this equation by completing the square method. Okay. So this method is actually very simple. There is some steps, there are some rules which we need to follow. First step, or first working rule is make the coefficient of x square unity, that is a should be 1. So here you can see a is already 1. Suppose if a is not equal to 1, then what we will do? Means if you are given an equation like this, 2x square plus 5x plus 8 is equal to 0, then what you will do? You will divide this equation by 2. Dividing by 2. When you divide this equation by 2, left side will be x square plus 5 by 2x plus 4 is equal to 0. So this will be your first step, right? Here we are having a is equal to 1, then first step is not required. We can directly move on to the next step, right? Then check the coefficient of x. Check the coefficient of x. First part, if it is positive, use m plus n whole square is equal to m square plus 2mn plus n square, and if it is negative, then use m minus n whole square is equal to m square minus 2mn plus n square, right? Let's check the coefficient of x. In this situation, coefficient of x is negative. So finally we will get this form. Okay. Now Let me write this identity which we have to use here. Because the coefficient of x is negative, I will be getting m minus n whole square, right? So m minus n whole square is m square minus 2mn plus n square. Our final result will be this. We will get this, that's for sure. Okay? To get this, first we need these three terms, because for them I can replace this with this only. Okay? Let's write these three terms in this format. Let's try to write these three terms in this format. Okay? So in this, you can see there is a number which is in whole square form, right? There is a number, there is a base which is in a perfect square form. Out of these three, it is very simple to find this particular term, because we are already having a number which is in whole square form. So this I am writing it as x whole square, means this term is completed. First term is completed. Now let's focus on that. As we already know, this will be in the form of 2 into m into n and minus 2 into m into n, because coefficient of x is negative. So write 2, now this m and this n. This will give me this term. Okay? So concentrate here. I have written minus 2 as it is. Now this m and n will be written here. One thing you can note it, one thing you can check from here, that m is already known to us. This m is already known to us. So our m was x. You can write it here. Our m was x. Right? So in place of this m here, I am going to write this x directly. So 2m is completed. Now n is remaining. This n is remaining. Okay? So in place of this n, I have to write a number which can actually balance this with this. Okay? So here I have to write a number which can actually balance this term with this term. Okay? So it is very simple to know this number. This number should be half the coefficient of x. Okay? Because we have to take care of this 2 also. We have already written 2 here. Now we need to cancel this 2 first. Okay? And then the coefficient of x directly. You can check it once. This 2 and this 2 cancelled. So this is minus 7x, which is equivalent to this, or which is just equal to this. So here we will always get the number which is half the coefficient of x. Okay? You can make a formula also. This number is always half the coefficient of x. Let me write it properly. Let me write this term properly. Okay? This is minus 2 m and n. M is x and n is 7 by 2. So we have got n as 7 by 2. So this term is also completed. Okay? Now to complete this identity, we need n square also. Recently we have got the value of n, but we don't have 7 by 2 whole square here. If we are not having 7 by 2 whole square, means this term will not be able to use this identity, right? So just to complete this form, I am going to add n square, which is 7 by 2 whole square here. This will complete my identity. Just writing this will complete my identity. Now you can see there was no 7 by 2 whole square term. I have written it just to complete this identity. It was not there in the question, right? So to balance this, I am going to subtract this also. Now this term is balanced. I have added 0. Adding 0 to anything will not be affecting the result. Now in the last, I am going to write this 12. So this will be the most important step while applying this method. Okay? If you are not sure about this step, you can pause the video, check this line one more time, and then you can play. Right? This step is very critical, it is very important. After that, this method is very simple. Right? So this was the most important line. Again I am telling, if you are not sure about this step, if you are not clear, then pause the video and check this line one more time, and then you can play the video. Right? So I am going forward. I'm going after this. So from here to here, I've got this, right? So for these three terms, I can apply this, right? Because this is equivalent to this. So from these three terms, for these three terms, I can easily write m minus n whole square. M minus n whole square. And now these two can be written as 12 minus 7 by 2 whole square is 49 by 4. This is equal to 0. So x minus 7 by 2 whole square, you can take the LCM, it will be 4, LCM is 4, this is 48 minus 49 is equal to 0, we are having a plus here. So this will be x minus 7 by 2 whole square, this is minus 1 by 4, this is minus 1 by 4, okay. So minus 1 by 4 is going in the right hand side, it will become 1 by 4. Minus 1 by 4, if you transpose this to the right hand side, you will get plus 1 by 4. So x minus 7 by 2, there is a whole square, so it will be 1 by 4 square root of that, and since this is a square, whole square, you will write a plus minus sign, which is compulsory. After that, you can see x minus 7 by 2 is equal to plus minus 1 by 2. Square root of 1 by 4 is 1 by 2. Then value of x will be 7 by 2 plus minus 1 by 2. Since the denominator are same, you can write alpha as 7 by 2 plus 1 by 2. 7 plus 1 is 8. 8 by 2 is 4. So alpha is 4 and beta is 7 by 2 minus 1 by 2. 7 minus 1 is 6. 6 by 2 is 3. So you have got alpha and beta. Okay students, so this was completing the square method. Then we will see the quadratic formula. Okay, so you need to copy this and then we will start the third method to solve a quadratic equation, which is the quadratic formula itself, right? So you can copy this. So I hope you have completed this. Let's see the quadratic formula, which is the third method to solve a quadratic equation. This method, the quadratic formula, was actually derived by using this particular method only, and this was done by Indian mathematician Sridharacharya. Let's see that formula. Okay, so third method is quadratic formula. This is derived by Sridharacharya's rule. This is derived by Sridharacharya. So this is called as Sridharacharya's rule also. Let this be the quadratic equation in which the leading coefficient is not equal to 0. Now what is this rule? To get the feeling of this rule, what we are going to do, suppose I am having a linear equation in one variable, which is the simplest equation. Let's take linear equation in one variable. Let's take a linear equation in one variable. Okay, the standard form form is ax plus b which is equal to 0. This is the standard form of a linear equation in one variable. You have studied about these equations in class 8th and 7th also. Now what do you mean by solution? Okay, solution means the value of variable which is x that will satisfy the given equation. Okay, means suppose there is an equation 3x minus 6 is equal to 0. If you put x equal to 2, you will get left hand side right hand side equal. So x equal to 2 is the solution of this equation. Okay, suppose I don't have the value of a and b. Let's think for a moment that we don't have the value of a and b. Okay, this is the given linear equation in one variable and we have to find solution of this equation. Okay, so what is the rule to find x? We will use rule of transposition. So ax will be minus of b and value of x will be minus b upon a. This is the solution. What will happen if we start using this result as a formula? What will happen if we start using this rule or this result as a formula? Will that be able to help us in solving every linear equation in one variable? Answer is yes. This rule or this solution, it is sufficient to give us the solution of any linear equation in one variable. You can apply that. Suppose this is a linear equation in one variable. For this equation, the value of a is 3 and the value of b, it is minus 6. So solution for this equation, x is equal to minus b upon a. Let's put the values. So minus b is also minus 6. So this will be minus 6 divided by 3, which will give you 2. So you have got the same result. Okay, so this is the basic idea of solving a quadratic equation and getting its value. What we are doing, we are taking this as a question. Okay, suppose this is a question, it's not an equation, it's a question. And for this question, for this equation, we have to find the value of x. And since we are not having a, b, c, therefore the value of x will be coming in terms of the constant given in the equation. Here also what we did, value of x is coming in terms of the constant which are given in the equation, given in the question or given in the equation. A and b are the constants which are given in the question. So we have got the value of x in terms of the given constant. We are using this as a formula to solve all the linear equations in one variable. This is the way, this is the approach. This should be the approach while getting solution of this. Okay, so let's assume this is an equation, it's a question and we have to find value of x from that. That value of x will definitely be in terms of a, b and c. Then we will use that result as a formula. That formula will be your quadratic formula. Okay, so how we can find the value of x from this equation? The method which we will be using will be your completing the square method. So let's see. We have learned completing the square method just. So rule number 1, that is you have to make the coefficient of x square 1. Let's divide this by a. Divide equation 1, let this be equation 1 by a. If you divide this by a, it will be reduced to x square plus b by a into x plus c by a is equal to 0. Now first step is completed, rule number 1 is over. Second step is we have to check the coefficient of x. If it is positive, then m plus n whole square will be formed, and if it is negative, then m minus n whole square will be formed. Here the coefficient of x is positive, means we will be getting m plus n whole square equal to m square plus 2mn plus n square. Right? So let's form these three terms which we just did, so it will not be tough. Out of these three terms, you can see this term is already completed, right? So I am writing this term as x whole square. So this term is completed. Then I need to write this. So 2m m. M I already know, it's x directly. Value of n will be such that it balances this with this. Okay? So first we need to balance this 2. Therefore I am writing 2 here and then b by a. So n will be always half the coefficient of x. Okay? So it will be b upon 2a. This term is also completed. Now we need this term, which is n square. Value of n is b by 2a. So let's we add b by 2a whole square just to complete this formula. And since it was not there in the equation, right? So we need to subtract this also. B by 2a whole square is subtracted. And last, I am writing c by a, that is equal to 0. So this term was the most important term. Okay? Okay, let me write it from here. So from here to here, you can see this is m square plus 2mn plus n square. So it is directly m plus n whole square, and then these two you can simplify them. You will get c by a minus this is b square by 4a square equal to 0. When you simplify this, it will be x plus b by 2a whole square. If you take the LCM will be 4a square. Okay, this a and this 4a square, if you divide them, you will get 4a. So plus 4ac minus b square, this is equal to 0. We have to transpose this term to the right hand side. Before transposing, let me write this term in negative form so that the transposition is smooth. We are going to take minus common from that because we have to transpose this to the right hand side. So I have taken minus common so that we can transpose it to the right hand side. Then after this, what will happen? It will be x plus b by 2a whole square. Transpose this to the right hand side. It will be b square minus 4ac upon 4a square. Now x plus b upon 2a, this will be equal to, there is a whole square, so we will get square root in the right hand side, and in front of that square root there will be plus minus sign. It is compulsory to write plus minus sign because it was a degree 2 equation. Okay, so x plus b upon 2a will be plus minus, you can see this 4a square is a perfect square number. Okay, so square root of 4a square will be 2a. Denominator is simply 2a, but this is not a perfect square number, so it is b square minus 4ac. So the value of x is minus b upon 2a plus minus under root b square minus 4ac divided by 2a. Since the denominator are same, so it is 2a minus b plus minus under root b square minus 4ac. This is what the value of x is. Okay, so this is value of x. You can apply this directly in any question to get the value of alpha and beta directly. You can see there is a plus sign and minus sign. If you take plus sign, you will get one root. If you take minus sign, you will get another root, right? So alpha and beta both are inside this box. Okay, so this was the derivation of quadratic formula. This method was derived by this great man Sridharacharya. He was from India. So you can note it down, this third method, which is quadratic formula itself. After this, we will see what is the nature of roots without solving, without finding alpha and beta, how we can get the nature of those two values, right? So you can note it down. Okay students, so I hope you have copied this. Now let's take another topic. which is nature of roots. So the next topic is nature of roots. As we know, this is the quadratic equation. Alpha and beta are the roots. A is not equal to 0, which is the leading coefficient. And also we have seen the solution, that is the quadratic formula. It is x is equal to minus b plus minus b square minus 4ac divided by 2a. This is the value of x, right? I am defining a new term by capital D. This D is called as discriminant. This D is called discriminant, and its value is equal to b square minus 4ac. This D is called discriminant, and its value is b square minus 4ac. This will decide whether this equation is having equal roots or unequal roots or real roots, imaginary roots. Okay, so this will decide nature of this root. Why? Because this term is inside the square root. Inside the square root, you cannot put any number. Okay, there must be some restriction on this number which is inside the square root, because you know square root of minus 25 is not defined. It's not a real number. Okay, we all know about these numbers. We have studied about these numbers in chapter 1, that these numbers are not in our syllabus. These are not real numbers. So this discriminant will decide the nature of roots. Let's see the nature. So based on this D, value of x will be minus b plus minus under root of d divided by 2a. Okay. Based on this D, there will be three possible cases. Three possible cases will be there. Case number 1. These are the possible cases. Case number 1, when the discriminant is 0. When the discriminant is 0, your x will be reducing to this form divided by 2a. So this will be minus b upon 2a. Means alpha and beta both will be minus b by 2a. So in this situation, you will say the roots are real and equal. Both will be equal to minus b upon 2a. Suppose for any given equation, if you have calculated the value of d already, you don't need to apply this complicated formula. You don't need to apply that. If you have already calculated d, then you can directly write alpha and beta both equal to minus b by 2a. You don't need to apply this formula again. Okay. Second case, if this d is positive, if this d is positive, this number is your d. If this d is positive, like 25, suppose this d is 25, then what will happen? Your x will be minus b plus root d upon 2a. You can call it alpha, and another value of x will be minus b minus root d upon 2a. You will call this as beta. So you can see this alpha and beta, they are not equal, but they are real. They are real. So in this situation, when discriminant is more than 0, you can say the roots are real and distinct. Distinct means they are different, or they are unequal. This was the second case. One last case is there when this discriminant is less than 0. Since this d is inside the square root, okay, if it is negative, then what will happen? X will be minus b plus minus under root a negative number, because this discriminant is negative, divided by 2a. So you cannot proceed further. In that situation, you will write no real roots. Don't ever write that root does not exist. Don't write that. Roots do exist, but they are not real. Okay, so don't write roots does not exist. Don't write that. Roots do exist, but they are not real. They are imaginary. You learn about this situation in class 11. Okay, this situation you will learn about them in class 11, not in class 10. So this was the nature of roots. You can note it down. Alright, students, so we are going to see this nature of roots by using graph of the quadratic equation, right? As we already know that graph of any quadratic equation is always a parabola. Parabola is a U-shaped curve, okay? So this nature of root can also be explained by drawing the graph. Now we are going to see what is the similarity or what is the relation between graph and these situations, okay? Okay, so next topic is nature of roots using graph of quadratic. Nature of roots using graph of quadratic, right? So first thing which we need to understand that graph of a quadratic equation is a parabola. Parabola is a U-shaped curve. Okay, parabola is a U-shaped curve. So, if the equation is this, equation is like this, where alpha and beta are the roots and leading coefficient is not equal to 0. I am writing this again and again because this is very important step. Leading coefficient can't be equal to 0. If a is 0, then this will be a linear equation. Graph will be a straight line. It will be a parabola only when if a is not equal to 0. Also, you need to understand one thing, that if this a is positive, then parabola will be opening upwards. Means for this situation graph will be like this. This parabola will be opening upwards. Okay. Second situation, if this a is negative, that parabola will be opening downward. Means it will be like that. Okay, so just by seeing the equation, you can find whether the graph will be opening upward or graph will be opening downward. Now, let's we discuss the cases. Those three cases. Let's we discuss those three cases with this situation. So I am going to discuss with this only. Okay, because these two are same cases. So first case, for this equation, value of x is minus b plus minus root d divided by 2a. Okay. Case 1. When d is equal to 0. When d is equal to 0, alpha and beta will be minus b upon 2a. So in this situation, when the discriminant is equal to 0, graph of the parabola will be like this. Graph for this situation, it will be like this. I am considering a is more than 0. Okay. For this situation, if the discriminant is equal to 0, value of x and y, value of alpha and beta, they will be equal to minus b by 2a. So for this situation, graph will be like this. X axis will be tangent to that parabola. This is origin. So in this situation, x axis will be tangent to the parabola. And this particular situation, the value of x, this is your alpha and beta. Because alpha and beta are the values at which this equation is becoming 0. If you want to plot this, what you will do? You will assume this equal to ax square plus bx plus c. This is equal to y. Suppose you have kept x is equal to alpha. Since alpha is roots of this equation, then what will happen? Value of y will be 0. So at alpha, x is equal to alpha, your value of y will be 0. Also at x equal to beta, value of y will be 0. These 2 points must lie on the x-axis. Why? Because these are having their ordinates 0. Y coordinate is 0 means these 2 points must lie on the x-axis. These 2 points are lying on the x-axis, and also these are roots. This alpha and beta, they are roots. Means in general we can say if the parabola is intersecting x at 2 different places, this value will be alpha, this value will be beta, because if you put x is equal to this value, y will be equal to 0, and similarly if you put x is equal to this value, y will be 0 in that situation. So these 2 points will be here. This is your alpha and this part is your beta. Coordinate of this point will be alpha comma 0 and coordinate of this point will be beta comma 0. Okay. So in this situation, since we are not having 2 values, we are having just one value. That value is equal. I mean, those 2 values are equal. We are not getting 2 values. We are just getting one value. Okay. So this graph cannot intersect x-axis, because if it intersects x-axis, there will be 2 possible values of x. Okay. You get my point. This graph cannot intersect x-axis. It will just touch the x-axis, so that it is having just one value that satisfies this equation. That is the meaning of discriminant equal to 0, because when discriminant is equal to 0, we'll get alpha and beta equal. Okay, so in this situation, when d is 0, this parabola can never intersect x-axis. This is the meaning of intersecting x-axis, and this is the meaning of touching x-axis. So in this situation, since the roots are equal, this will not intersect x-axis, this will touch the x-axis. Right? So this is the first case. Next we have the second case, when discriminant is more than 0. Okay, so in that situation, we all know that roots are real and unequal. So for this situation the graph will be like this. Okay, graph will be like this. This is x axis, this is x dash, this is y dash, and this is y. This is origin. So this graph will intersect x axis at two different places, so that we are having two possible values of x at which this y is equal to 0. These two are alpha and beta. Okay, so this point will be alpha or beta, or this point will be beta or alpha. Alpha and beta. Coordinate of this point will be alpha comma 0 and coordinate of this point will be beta comma 0, right? So for this situation, when the discriminant is positive, you will get this graph. And third case, when the discriminant is less than 0. This is the situation in which we will not be getting any value of x for which this y is becoming 0. Okay? In this situation, we will not be getting any real value of x for which y is becoming 0. So if y is not becoming 0, think about that. If y is not becoming 0, means that graph cannot intersect or cannot touch x axis. It cannot touch or it cannot intersect the x axis, because if it do so, then what will happen? At that point y will be 0. So y will never be 0 at any particular value of x, any real value of x. That is the meaning of discriminant negative. So for this situation, the graph will be like this. It will never intersect, it will never touch x axis. That is the reason why we say for this particular equation there will be no real roots of x. There will be no real values of x. There is no such values of x for which y becomes 0. If y is not becoming 0, means at any point on the graph y is not equal to 0. Because if y is equal to 0, it must intersect or it must touch x axis. This is not happening in this situation when discriminant is negative. So in this situation, what will happen? Roots are not real. Okay, so this topic is nature of roots using graph of quadratic equation. Okay, this topic is very important for NTSC, for competition, and for the students who are preparing for other Olympiad sections, other competition. Also, this topic is useful for the students who are having their standard maths paper. Okay, so you can note it down. Then we will see the next topic. Now you can copy this. So next topic in this chapter is concept of conjugate roots. We will see what are conjugate roots, right? So next topic is concept of conjugate roots. Concept of conjugate roots. Let me explain this word and then we'll come on this topic, right? So, in the identity, a square minus b square is equal to a minus b into a plus b. In this identity, both a minus b and a plus b are called conjugate of each other. Okay, so in this identity, a minus b is the conjugate of a plus b and a plus b is the conjugate of a minus b. Okay, now what is the connection of this topic in the quadratic equations? In any quadratic equation, not necessarily quadratic, it is in any equation. Okay, it is not necessary that equation is quadratic only. This happens in any equation, any degree equation. But since we are talking about quadratic equation, so Let me write it in any quadratic equation. But this concept is applicable in any equation. Okay, it is not restricted to quadratic only. This concept is valid in any equation. But since we are focusing on quadratic, that is why I have written in any quadratic equation. Okay. So in any quadratic equation, irrational roots, I'll explain that. Irrational roots occur in conjugate pair. In any quadratic equation, irrational roots always occur in conjugate pair. Okay, there is a condition, provided the coefficients of the equation are rational. This is the condition. Okay, for any quadratic equation, if alpha is irrational, okay, for any quadratic equation, you know the roots, they are alpha and beta. If alpha is irrational, then beta will be its conjugate pair, that is confirmed. Okay, if alpha is irrational, beta will be its conjugate pair. Okay, provided the coefficients used in the equation, that are a, b, c, they must be rational. Now what is this? Let me simplify this. Suppose there is an equation ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Alpha and beta are the roots. I have given a is not equal to 0 and a, b, c, they are rational. A, B, C are rational means they can be written in the form P by Q. You know about rational numbers. So if A, B, C are rational and somebody is telling that alpha is 3 plus root 2. Okay, alpha is 3 plus root 2, then this is irrational. 3 plus root 2 is irrational. You have solved them in chapter 1, exercise 1.3. You have done these questions that prove 3 plus root 2 is irrational. You have done those questions, right? So alpha is 3 plus root 2, it is irrational, and it is given that A, B, C are rational, so there must be conjugate of this. There must be one more root which is conjugate of this, but this is quadratic. It cannot have more than 2 roots. One root is irrational, then second it is beta only. So beta must be 3 minus root 2. That is this concept. Okay. If 3 plus root 2 is 1, 0, it is a plus b form. You just have to write a minus b form so that you can complete this identity. So if alpha is 3 plus root 2, which is irrational, beta will be 3 minus root 2. It is confirmed because a, b, c are rational. It is given in the question, right? So you can use this concept directly. Now let me give a question. Let me give a question based on this concept. Suppose they are saying alpha is, any example, let's say alpha is 4 minus root 5 and they say find a quadratic equation whose one root is alpha. You may think that it is not confirmed whether A, B, C are rational or not. It is not given in the question. But let me tell you, if A, B, C is not rational, we cannot solve this question. We cannot solve this question if it is not. We cannot solve this question if A, B, C is not rational. If A, B, C is irrational, we cannot solve this question. So to solve this question, we have to assume that A, B, C are rational. Okay, whether it is given or it is not given, we will assume A, B, C are rational, because for this information, it will not be possible to solve this equation. It will not be possible to find that quadratic equation. Okay, so we have to assume that A, B, C are rational, whether it is given or it is not. So here alpha is given 4 minus root 5, which is irrational. So we will use this concept and write beta as 4 plus root 5. This was a minus b form, so beta will be a plus b form. Now we have alpha and beta both. We can easily find the equation by using this formula. Okay? So equation will be x square sum of these two. So when you add them, root 5 cancelled. It will be 8x. When you multiply them, it will be a plus b into a minus b. So 4 plus root 5 into 4 minus root 5, it is just simple 4 square minus root 5 square, 16 minus 5 which is 11. So this will be your answer. You can simplify it, x square minus 8x plus 11 which is equal to 0. Okay. So this concept is very useful. You can apply it directly. It may be given that A, B, C are rational, but if it is not given, then also you need to apply the same process. Okay. So you can copy this. This concept is very useful, and let me tell you one more thing, that this concept is not only applicable in quadratic. It is applicable in any equation. Degree can be anything. Okay. It is valid in any equation. Right? Now you can copy this. After that we will see the next topic. Next topic is pseudo-quadratic equation. Let me write the name first. When you pronounce this, P will be silent. So it is pseudo-quadratic equation. Pseudo means virtual. Okay. Pseudo-quadratic equation means those equations which are actually quadratic, but just by seeing them for the first time, you will not be able to recognize that they are really quadratic. Means degree will be something else. But when you simplify it, when you reduce it, you will get a quadratic equation. So originally they will not be in the direct form of quadratic, in which you will not be seeing degree 2. Okay, degree will be something else. But when you simplify them or when you reduce them, they will be converted into the form of quadratic equation. So that is pseudo-quadratic equation. Okay. So just to define them in simple words, those equations which are not in the form of quadratic directly, but on simplification or reducing gets the form of a quadratic equation. This is the simplest language. Okay. Those equations which are not in the form of quadratic directly, but on simplification or reducing gets the form of a quadratic equation. Yeah, definition is correct. I think you can understand what is written here. So those equations which are not in the form of quadratic directly, just by seeing them for the first time, you cannot say these are quadratic. Let me show an example. Okay. So for an example, if I write 1 by x plus 1 upon x minus 3 is equal to 11 by 2. Just by seeing this, you cannot say this is quadratic, because the quadratic which we know is always in the form of this. Okay, this is the form of quadratic in which a is not equal to 0. This is the general form of quadratic equation. If I tell you this is also quadratic, you will say how this is quadratic, because we cannot see any degree 2 term here. So what it is written, the equation which are not in the form of quadratic directly, it is not in the form of quadratic directly, but on simplification or reducing gets the form of a quadratic, it is called as quadratic. Okay, it is called as pseudo quadratic. This equation is a pseudo quadratic. If you simplify this, what will happen? Just take the LCM. So x into x minus 3. I hope you are familiar with the LCM and solving these fractions. So LCM is x into x minus 3. This will be x minus 3 plus x, which is equal to 11 by 2. You can see this is 2x minus 3. Okay, 2x minus 3 divided by x into x minus 3 equal to 11 by 2. When you cross multiply, what will happen? 2 into 2x minus 3 is equal to 11x into x minus 3. So this will be 4x minus 6 is equal to 11x square minus 33x. So final equation will be, I am transposing these two terms to the right hand side. So this will be 11x square minus 33x. These two terms going in the right hand side. So it will be minus 4x plus 6 is equal to 0. Therefore, this is 11x square minus 37x plus 6 is equal to 0. So now you can see it is in the form of a quadratic. Originally it was not in the form of quadratic, but now I have simplified this to get the quadratic form. Therefore, it is quadratic equation. And strictly speaking, this is pseudo quadratic equation. So I have explained about this thing, in which I have simplified this to a quadratic form. Now there is this thing also, and some equations are also not in the form of quadratic, but we can reduce them in the form of a quadratic. Let me take an example. Suppose there is an equation which is t to the power 4, in which the variable is t to the power 4 minus 3t square plus 7 is equal to 0. So if this is an equation in t, the variable is t, and degree of t is 4, it means it is not a quadratic, it is biquadratic. I hope you know that if degree is 1, that equation is a linear equation. If degree is 2, it is quadratic, degree 3 means cubic, and degree is 3 means biquadratic. So this is not quadratic, it is biquadratic equation. What you will do, you will just substitute this thing, t square is equal to x. Okay, if t square is equal to x, you can write it as t square whole square minus 3t square plus 7 is equal to 0. Therefore, it is x square, because this part is x. So x square minus 3x plus 7 is equal to 0. So we can reduce this into a quadratic form. Therefore, it is also pseudo quadratic equation. Understood? So this is the last topic. This was the last topic of this chapter, quadratic equations. I hope you have understood all these topics. In the next lecture, we will be taking some questions based on these concepts. Okay? Those questions will be from the books which we generally refer. I will not be taking any question from NCERT book, because I hope and I suppose you have completed those things. If haven't completed, you can check my videos for quadratic equation, in which I have discussed every question of NCERT book. So from the next lecture, we will be taking some extra questions. Those extra questions will be from famous book across India, that is R.D. Sharma, R.S. Agrawal, NCERT exemplar book. So I will be collecting all these questions which are relevant, and after that we will take the solutions of those questions. So I will see